Hey, what's up, everybody? BDF44 coming at you with another video. All right. Well, I want to congratulate the New Orleans Pelicans for making the playoffs. They beat the Los Angeles Clippers in the play-in game at the Crow, and boy, was it spectacular. That second half was a roller coaster. You had a huge quarter from the Clippers in the third quarter, and a huge quarter from the Pels in the fourth quarter. I'll tell you the truth, man. That second half, I was just cussing at my screen, man, because I'm looking at Willie Green and I see the that I had just given him all this credit in that halftime, video that I made. I'm like, oh, he had put this lineup on the floor that was so perfect and they're unstoppable when you put that lineup on the floor. And he came back in the third and had some wacky lineup. It just was not working out. And it was a one singular play, just one play where Najee Marshall had the ball just kind of taken from him, you know, just a regular situation where the Clippers have put the defense on him, and I felt the momentum shift, and I'm like, it's very important that Coach put guys like Murphy and Hayes back on the floor, to help them put Alvarado back on the floor. And he put Tony Snell in the game. Now, Tony Snell is one of the best free throw shooters in the game. Don't get it twisted. Tony Snell has his strengths, but Tony Snell is infamous for having games where he will play big minutes and not register any stat at all. Like, he's done it more than twice. So it's a situation where it's like, if you want somebody down there who can bump some people around, you know what I mean? Maybe hit a corner three here and there. You might call on Tony Snell. For height and length, you think he's a good matchup, but in reality, he's just not an active ball player a good portion of the time he's out there. So you don't call his number when you want a matchup. You call Trey Murphy. That's who he should have put in the game. You call Alvarado. That's who he should have put in the game. And I just felt like that lineup where he had Najee Marshall on the floor and Tony Snell on the floor, that was when things went completely left. And I felt like the other complimentary Pelicans, the Herb Joneses, they didn't really, pull it together. CJ, they didn't really pull it together in that third quarter when Tony was down there with him. So it was one of those situations where, give Clippers credit. Moore started hitting big shots. Reggie Jackson had a really good game, and, they got some things out of Terrence Mann in that situation, rebounding the ball, playing well. Nicholas Batum had a fantastic defensive game. So you started seeing stuff work for the Clippers at the same time. The Pelicans were sitting some of the best players that had been playing so well from the first half. But of course, Willie Green got his stuff together and put the players that had been succeeding back on the floor. And as a result, you saw them take back control of the game. Brandon Ingram started doing some of the things that he was doing in the first half, being aggressive, hitting shots. You started seeing and them call Trey Murphy's number. He had picked 3 big threes in the fourth quarter, which I thought was something that made me feel like a genius for saying he's one of the best shooters going forward, and to look out for him as a great shooter someday. And, that journey begins now. I just really liked the Pelican team. I felt like they were a better team than the Clippers going into this game, without of Paul George, of course. And I felt like they were going to win the game even if Paul played, but definitely not. They couldn't beat this team without Paul George. But I think at the same time, you got to give them a credit because they had opportunities to win just the same. They did play some excellent defense down the stretch. They did have great performances from key veterans who understood the moment and met that intensity. But ultimately, you just got to, take your hat off to the relentlessness of this Pelican team that has a bunch of talented young players that weren't afraid of the moment. I think free throw shooting, field goal shooting, and 3-point shooting as a whole was not on a premium, at a premium tonight. I think both teams could have shot better. But all in all, you saw great defense, and that's what I was happy to see from both teams. I think the Clippers, you got to give them credit, man. I don't think they have any reason to hold their heads, low. As a Laker fan, I got an entirely different perspective, and there's a lot to say. But just as somebody who's an onlooker, as somebody who's objective, they didn't have any reason to feel bad about themselves. I don't think they need to blow up anything. I don't think they need to trade anybody other than Kawhi Leonard if they decide to make trades. And the only reason why I would trade Kawhi Leonard is because I can't rely upon him. Here's another game, another season where he's lost. They didn't win a championship. He's nowhere to be found. And just how many more seasons you gonna allow this to be the case? Um, they do have a lot of young talent that they should try to cultivate. And I think Kawhi Leonard, just like LeBron James for the Lakers, is a piece at this point that's aging, that probably should be in a winning situation, a win-now situation. And I don't think these two LA teams should be forcing themselves into win-now timelines based on these aging superstars who ultimately can't drag them to that championship without help, without them basically decimating their respective teams to make them better or do crazy stuff like trade 5 draft picks to get them their co-star. I mean, I think that stuff is proven to be a failure at this point. Real teams are winning, as you can see. A team like the Pelicans, who don't even have their best player in Zion Williamson, went out there and beat you on your home floor. I mean, this whole superstar era is over. It's about who has a deeper team, who has the younger body, who has the younger bodies, and who has the lengthier players, smarter players, better shooters, etc. And the more you have, the better you'll do. That's where the NBA's headed, and I think the Clippers got a jump start on that because they have a bunch of players they like, a bunch of high-level young players who could really go. Waiting around for Kawhi Leonard, banking on PG, who just caught a bad break, unfortunately, was obviously ready to go, ready to play tonight, but at the end of the day, banking on superstars, it ain't worked for the Clippers. Here we are, another season, lost, nothing to show for it. They undercut the Lakers and all this talk about this LA their way. They ain't done nothing. Can't even make the playoffs. They're doing nothing. You know what I mean? You got a great coach. Like I said, great young players. Terrence Mann, Coffey, all these guys, Hartenstein, all these guys are great. Norman Powell. Fewer players I like coming off the bench than Norman Powell. He's somebody who can always be up for a 6th Man of the Year award. They got good players. But when you build your foundation isn't reliable, you ain't going nowhere. So that's what's up with the LA teams. Both of them sitting on the couch next to me. And as for the Pelicans, well, they got a date with the Phoenix Suns. We know the Phoenix Suns are phenomenal. We'll do a whole video on that. We'll talk about that breakdown. But for the time being, it's time for the Pelicans to rejoice, be happy. And now it's time for me to jump into my Laker side of things. It's time for me to put on my Laker hat. We're going to shift away from the biasness, and we're going to talk about this from this perspective. All right, so Brandon Ingram and Larry Nance Jr. were basically the stars of the Pelicans. And as you know, those are Lakers. Yes, once you're a Laker, you're always a Laker, whether you win a championship here or not. If you were drafted a Laker or we deem you someone we appreciated while you were here, it doesn't even matter if you were here for just half a season. You're a Laker. I think about a guy like Caron Butler, who was here for like literally half a season or something like that. He's a Laker. You know what I mean? And I look at B.I., obviously we had him for 4 years? Larry Nance, same thing. And for them dudes to come into our house, not the Clippers' house, they pay rent here, our house, and knock them boys off, I look at it as them continuing their holding us down. You think they weren't thinking about their time with the Lakers at any point in time when they was stumping the Clippers out tonight? Please, that's not how this works. They were most definitely having some Laker pride in their heart. They most definitely was thinking about Laker Nation, and they know we're out here celebrating the fact that they knocked off these Clippers. They know how much it means to us that they beat these players, even if they're wearing different uniforms, even if they never play for us again. Once you're a Laker, you're always a Laker, and you're doing the Lakers' bidding when you come in and make it your business to play hard and big in a closeout game against our rivals. We know what time it is. Salute. And big up to the Pelicans for doing the right thing and making sure those guys are rostered on their team. Fortunately enough, they also have a lot of other players that help them too. And I think that's going to bode well in the next series, even though it's going to be tough for them to even win a game against Phoenix. At the end of the day, they do have the players to make things very difficult for Phoenix. And Phoenix ain't going to be able to rest. And I think New Orleans is going to punch them in the mouth real hard. So that's going to be good. That's going to be a fun series, even if it doesn't last very long. It's going to be a fun series. And I'm happy the Clippers aren't going to be a part of it as a Laker fan. I also want to mention how good it is to see B.I. continue to play well. Continuing his career as a star. And, we're at a point, even though it's several years later and a ring removed, as a Laker fan, you have to ask, where are we in terms of weighing B.I. versus Anthony Davis? Is BI still beneath Anthony Davis in terms of the rankings, or is BI amongst Anthony Davis? Where are we? Is the question I'm asking. Because I've always thought of Anthony Davis as a player who's a unicorn, obviously, someone who could shoot and stretch the floor and do all different types of things. And he's big, like much bigger than Brandon Ingram, even though Brandon Ingram has similar traits and has length that can do similar stuff. BI is more of a guard, and of course AD's more of a big, so I value AD more just period. But I'm not certain that we're at a point where remove the ring. I have to keep the ring in the situation because the ring makes this conversation so much more important. We've won. But if you remove the ring and you just look at the players, am I still happy I made that trade? I ain't happy I made that trade. I ain't gonna lie. I'm not happy. I'm not. What do you want me to do? I'm not happy I made that trade. I wasn't happy when we made the trade that day. I ain't happy when we trade now when we think about the trade and where we are as a franchise, as a Laker fan, and looking where BI is as a Pelican. Standing triumphant in our building with a win. A playoff victory, basically. Wearing a different uniform. It's like, at some point in time, we have to be honest and say, hey, maybe this wasn't the right move. Now, granted, we won a championship. So it's like, all right, Brandon, all right, reel it in. But at the end of the day, I would much rather have BI right now than Anthony Davis. And I think there's a good portion of the league who feels the exact same way. And to look at BI continue to do exactly what he did against the Clippers tonight, continue to just score it repeatedly at will. Nobody could guard him, double team, whatever. He did whatever he wanted. That would help us. I always felt, and I'm going to stand by this, that the Lakers would have won that championship if BI were on the team instead of Anthony Davis. If we wouldn't have made that trade and we found ourselves in that bubble, we still would have beat the Heat. We still would have ran through the playoffs. We still would have beat the Nuggets. We still would have beat the Rockets. We still would have beat whoever the hell that was we saw in the first round. I don't remember who it was. Phoenix? No, it wasn't Phoenix. Even though they were like literally undefeated, they didn't make the playoffs for some weird reason. I could argue that propelled them to being as good as they are now, but I digress. Point is, if we wouldn't have made that trade, I still think we're champs. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm just watching our kids grow up, and I'm watching Larry Nance and BI be the best players in a closeout game. And I'm seeing us sitting on the couch. I don't know. Congratulations to the Pelicans on everything, including making the trade a victory for yourselves. And, we'll see if you guys are able to capture a championship at some point, too, so that can be solidified in the numbers on your end. But as far as how I feel, never mind the numbers, just how I feel, I want B.I. back in a Laker uniform doing what he did for y'all, for us. Period. That's just how I feel about it. And I knew I would feel that way, too, but it is what it is. Here we are. So, that's my Laker perspective on this entire thing. It's just like, yet again, we're seeing our kids go off doing what they do, and we are sitting here being trash. So, yeah. But anyway, congratulations to everybody involved. Now the playoffs are underway. No more play-in tournaments. The play-in tournament was great. I thought most of the games were excellent. You had a situation where you didn't know who was going to win at the halftime. You thought it was going to go one way, maybe it go the other. Who knows? And that's exactly what you want. Winner takes all, strategy adjustments. I saw some good things out of both coaches tonight. Ty Lue made some good adjustments. The Clippers played excellent. Again, defensively, they met the intensity. They didn't want to go home. And I don't think they have any reason to hang their head tonight. Just given the fact that they did have Paul George removed. They did play well. They did run into a Pelican team that had longer, younger players with winning momentum behind them. You know what I mean? Having just won the game that they played. So I thought Minnesota did a fantastic job against the Clippers. Embarrassed the heck out of them. And I thought the Clippers came back home and responded well to getting beat. And they just happened to get beat again. So that's kind of how I remember this. If I'm Steve Ballmer, Kawhi Leonard has played his last game as a Clipper. I'm not doing this another season with you, dog. I'm not doing this. I'm sorry. I looked over at him as he was sitting there down the stretch of the game, long face. I don't know what his health is like. Whether it is as bad as he says it is, or it's him, kind of taking his time with his health like he always has. Either way, personally, I wouldn't want to have nothing to do with it. Nothing at all. Because they did this deal with him. They undercut the Lakers and all that nonsense. Undercut LeBron. Did all that shiesty stuff. And they ain't got nothing at all to show for it. Nothing. Traded away 5 picks for Paul George. Nothing to show for it. If I'm Ballmer, I'm not gonna do it again. BDL44. Thank y'all for watching. I'm out.